Welcome back. It's Q3, week 6, day 1, and I am recording today. We're doing Turbotastic. We are going to learn how to use the TurboSmooth modifier to add smooth details to our character in 3D Studio Max 2014. Today, we are going to start with our model like this. Now, you may or may not have your model have a symmetry modifier on your model, but either way, we're going to start here, okay? And that's basically where everybody's at. Now, the TurboSmooth modifier is in the modifier list up here. Just click in there and type in TU, and it should automatically jump down to TurboSmooth. You can click on that. Now, when you do that, everything gets rounded. And you kind of look like some sort of weird marshmallow person with super soft everything. You can actually turbo smooth again and again, and everything gets smooth and weird, and yeah. But that's not what we want. We're just going to stick with one smooth iteration. But in order for that to work well, we should probably figure out how to get things to work properly. So you'll notice that every time something is smooth, we have this, let's go ahead and look at the poly level. If I select editable poly, hit the number 4. If you look at this, when Turbo Smooth is on, and I iterate it, it now has 4 edges. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I do it again, it's broken up into 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you can't see it, but I promise 13, 14, 15, 16 are on the inside. And it averages the distance between all of those edges. So what happens is all of our hard edges that we work so, to make sure we're hard are now smooth, which is pretty cool, kind of. The problem is that smoothness means that we lose a lot of our definition that we want, right? So our nose becomes very, very smooth and maybe rounded a little too much. Our eyelids don't have any sort of definition anymore. Our clothing can be really, really bad. It just looks like everything is super smooth. The belt sort of disappears. Our shoes get weird. So you sort of you see the problem. So what we need to do is we need to go through and look at every single edge that we need, and we need to start adding a loop to the edge. So we're actually going to go to edge, and then we are going to double click on some edges that we want to stay sharp, and we are going to chamfer them. Now you'll notice with Turbo Smooth it's really smooth. When I click on editable poly, it jumps all the way back. Now this button we've talked about before, show end result on and off toggle. I'm going to go ahead and click that so that it is on. Alright, now I can still see the edges. They're in like orangish. And you can see I've got one selected that's yellow. But what it does is it shows the end result. So after the smoothing, this is what I'm going to do. Now if I take that edge that I have selected and I chamfer it, alright, I can just grab the edge, chamfer it. Suddenly, I get a pretty sharp eyelid. And it looks drastically better. Let me undo it. That versus that. Well, that's pretty close to what an eyelid really looks like. And we're going to do that for any sort of edge that we need to stay relatively sharp. Okay, so nostril. Double click. Get number 2. Let's see if I can double click it. If not, I may have to actually select it. And it's really, really hard to see. But I'm going to do my best. And then I'm going to chamfer it. This one doesn't need to be nearly as sharp. But you can see how the mouth looks pretty good, smooth. We might want to add a edge here. You can see I've got to select each one individually. I'll try and add an edge around the lips a little bit. And you can make it really drastic or not so drastic. Just sort of a little bit there. And you'll also notice that as we go, certain things need to be much more sharp, like this section here for the hair. I'm going to hit F3 so I can actually see my edge. And double click that. And there. 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 And there. There. Now, like I said before, it's really pretty hard to see. But once you have your edge set, you can sharpen it so that you get an actual edge to work with. And you can do this all the way through. If you want the edge sharp for the hair, you can have it sharper there, etc., etc. Places that you're really going to have to look at are the collar. I usually double click that collar. It's not giving me a good selection. There. But the collar really needs work. I'm also going to take probably the top edge of this section here, chamfer it, and you can see almost immediately you get a much sharper edge, and it looks a lot better. If you need to do it on the bottom, you have to do it on the bottom. If you ever, once, you don't really need to watch turbo smoothing the entire time. You can turn it off, and it's a lot easier to sort of see. And you can also sort of see when it's going to be problematic. Like in this section here, I probably want to have this so it's also being cut. You got to be careful because you're going to get weird edges through here that you may want to adjust because it's going to give you sharp edges that could be a little weird. Other places that you should probably look at is this area here. What I like to do is I like to sort of double click edges. So I can double click both of those and then go to chamfer. And I just actually press the semicolon key and it'll chamfer the same amount that I already did, which is nice. I don't care about the inside. We could double check that, but it's probably okay. We do need to look at things like the pant leg. So I can double click this again, double click, hold control, double click that, and then hit colon or semicolon, and that will chamfer it. And we can go look at the smoothness of it now. All right. Same thing with this edge here. Go back to editable poly, double click, double click, double click. Got all that. Double click. Well, that's not going to work. Any hard edge, anything you want to stay relatively crisp, you're going to want to chamfer. All right? And now, there we go. It's adding a ton of extra geometry. Actually, I'm going to undo that one because I want to get this too and that. Like I said, it's adding a bunch of extra geometry. But I'm kind of okay with that. Because we are concerned about making sure that this is going to look good when it's turbo smooth. So I'm going to hit the colon, semicolon again, and that's going to give me a bunch of little extra edges. But that'll be okay. And any other, oh yeah, the belt. So I'm going to double click on that, double click on that. Any sharp edge. So I'm going to double click here and there, and then I'd probably do the belt as a whole separate object if I really wanted to, but for now I'm going to chamfer that as well. Actually, I think I'll do that on its own. So there. Notice it's a very, very small difference, but when it comes to the end of the line, it's going to make a big difference in how it looks. Now it actually looks like sort of like a belt still, right? So it gives a sharp, so obviously we need a sharp edge in here that I missed. So let's go back to editable poly. Edge. Turn that off. Got all that. That's good. Might as well do it all the way through. And then I'll just hit the colon again. Semicolon. Look at it with it. So now you can see the collar is much smoother. The lips are more round. Now, when it comes to the ear, you can see the ear is Not as crisp as you may want it to be, and it may be getting a little marshmallowy. That's a problem, and that's why sometimes it's okay to go through and look at, grab some edges and look at the final product to see how you can pull things around and make them look better. Like, you can do some really weird stuff with the actual geometry that makes turbo smoothing work for you. For instance, if you want, I don't know, you want this ridge here to really look a little more drastic, we can chamfer that a little bit, and then we can take it and hit W and just move it out some, right? And it makes it, like I said, it makes it look very drastic, but it also, you're working with the tools that you have, right? Chamfer that. Actually, let's just do that there. Then you can grab the edge itself and then move it around to sort of give a harder edge to the ear. And the underlying geometry could get really weird looking. In order to get the sort of stuff you want, you may end up having vertices that are like sticking out really weird. And that's kind of okay, because what we're more concerned about is how it will look after the modifier is applied. Right? So, stuff like that. This could come up like that. We might bring these down. Then now, if we were looking at the object without the modifier, it will look weird. But with the modifier, it turns out looking pretty good. Alright, like that maybe. So, go ahead, take some time, do some turbo smoothing, adjust your edges, make sure, see how much farther that is out. You can do some drastic stuff and it doesn't look as bad as it would if the modifier wasn't applied. But yeah, take your time, go through, make sure everything looks good, and then run it through your symmetry and turbo smooth modifier, and then render it out. Now at this point it should kind of start to look like you, at least somewhat. If not, then you can once again go down to the editable poly level and start modifying some stuff. Soft selection is your friend, so use it. Things aren't big enough or too big or too small or whatever, grab sections, pull it back, whatever you need to do. You try and get it to look as much like you as possible. You can sort of see here, put that forward. Maybe my cheeks are too big. Soft selection's my friend. Maybe that needs to come out some more. Maybe come back more. Anyway, now's the chance for you to go through it. Also, like I said before, you can do some things with your lips. Be careful on your center line to adjust your soft selection accordingly. But like we said before, you can do some pretty crazy things with the turbo smoothing that will look bad otherwise, but may look okay once you turbo smooth them, right? Like, that's a little drastic, but you kind of get the idea. I can really sort of build out that ridge a little more to get my lips looking a little more accurate. Where is that? There you go. To give that sort of curve that we want. Now without that, it could look really sort of odd. Even with it, it looks odd, but you get the idea. You can even invert them and do terrible things with the geometry in the hope that it will turn out okay. F3, where's my other vert? There we go. To give more of a definition to the lip. Grab those two, moving forward. It's basically like modifying things that are, it's almost like working with curves, like we worked with before, working with like curves that are adjusting things subtly. Anyway, lips are hard. I have a hard time with lips. All right. Anyway, once you get that to a point where you like it, you double check, make sure it looks good, and then save your work, and we'll take it from there. The next thing we're going to do, make sure you render it too. Rendering it, especially in this case, can really help because you can see where your edges are and where things look good or not so good. You can see if you've got problems like this, it looks like my edges got overlapped there. That will render poorly. F9. See that? We don't want that. So that needs to be fixed. But go ahead and take a good 20-30 minutes and spend time selecting loops and then turbo smoothing and then seeing how it turns out. You don't need like a super defined edge between your hairline and your skin necessarily. Some things more than others, sure, but generally you don't need a super defined edge. Most of the edges that you'll need will be on clothing. If you had fingernails, if you want to put fingernails in, you can. This would be a good time for that. You can look at your shoes, make sure your shoes have effective edging. Grab these. So things like this, if it looks weird, which that kind of does, we can probably fix some of that. It's a little drastic. Grab that, move it in some. Once again, we're mostly concerned to make sure that the geometry looks good afterwards. Grab those, move that out. You might be able to hear the 3D printer in the background. Working on science fair stuff. Anyway, that's basically it. Keep looking through it. Make sure it's going to render out well for you. And save your work. And next time we're going to start UVing this character of ours. So we're going to start splitting their face. And to do that, we are going to go back to editable poly. We're going to take off the symmetry modifier, and we're going to work just individually. Like I said, you won't be held accountable if you've got some weird geometry because of how TurboSmooth works. So it's a good start. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time when we UV this poor, poor unfortunate soul.